Welcome to SA News Weekly News Update. We'll cover the top stories from across the United States, important developments worldwide, and new insights from the world of health and science.
Health officials in South Carolina reported a significant surge in measles cases this week, with the total number of infections reaching 789. This figure surpasses the previous 2025 record held by Texas and marks the largest state-level outbreak in the United States this year. On Tuesday alone, state health data confirmed 89 new cases since the previous Friday. Officials have warned that the outbreak could persist for weeks or months, citing lagging vaccine uptake in certain communities as a primary factor in the continued transmission. The rapid spread has prompted a response from the federal government. The Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, has allocated $1.4 million in emergency aid to support South Carolina's response efforts. Additionally, teams from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, are currently on the ground, working with state health officials to investigate transmission patterns and coordinate public health interventions. This domestic surge has international implications for the United States public health standing. The Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, is scheduled to meet in April to review the status of measles in the region. There is now a documented risk that the U.S. could lose its measles elimination status, a designation the country has held since 2000. Loss of this status would signify that the virus has established sustained year-round transmission within the country once again. The United States federal government officially entered a partial shutdown at 12:01 a.m. Saturday, January 31st, after the House of Representatives failed to ratify a Senate-brokered funding deal before the midnight deadline. While the Senate successfully passed a compromise package in a 71-29 vote late Friday night, the House had already adjourned for the weekend. This technical lapse means that several major federal agencies are now operating without a formal budget. The standoff is notably different from previous funding battles. It was triggered primarily by a breakdown in negotiations over the Department of Homeland Security. Democratic lawmakers moved to block full-year funding for the agency following a high-profile incident in Minneapolis, where two protesters were fatally shot by federal immigration agents earlier this month. In response, Senate leaders carved out a split-off deal. They passed full-year funding for 5 major departments, including Defense, Labor, and Health and Human Services, while granting DHS only a 2-week extension to allow for deeper reforms into ICE and CBP conduct. Essential personnel, including active-duty military and air traffic controllers, are required to report to work, but will technically be doing so without pay until the legislation is signed. Other agencies, such as the Justice Department, USDA, and the VA, remain fully operational as they were funded in separate bills earlier this year. House leaders have indicated they will return to Washington on Monday, February 2nd, to hold an emergency vote, which could end this shutdown within 48 hours. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres held a high-profile press conference in New York this week to outline the organization's priorities for 2026. During the briefing, Guterres offered a candid assessment of the UN's current standing, noting that while the organization maintains the determination to solve global tragedies, it currently lacks the leverage and power to force leaders to abide by international law. He specifically pointed to the fact that several members of the Security Council are themselves currently involved in violations of international law, complicating the UN's role as a mediator. The Secretary-General highlighted 3 primary areas of concern: the ongoing conflicts in Ukraine and Sudan, and the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Regarding Gaza, the U.S. has announced that a brokered plan has entered its second phase, focusing on demilitarization and reconstruction. However, Guterres emphasized that the Secretariat's ability to create conditions for lasting peace is limited by the willingness of sovereign nations to cooperate. Beyond conflict resolution, the UN is undergoing a significant internal restructuring, titled the UN80 Initiative. This program aims to make the system more cost-effective and nimble as it approaches its 80th anniversary. Guterres reported that the regular budget has already seen a 22% reduction in staff posts through a prepared transition. The goal of these reforms is to ensure the organization remains relevant in a multipolar world where traditional diplomacy is increasingly challenged by unilateral state actions and withdrawals from international treaties. An international team of scientists utilizing data from NASA's K2 mission has announced the discovery of an intriguing new exoplanet candidate, HD 137101b. Located approximately 146 light-years away, this world has been dubbed a cold Earth due to its rocky composition and its position near a sun-like star. While it is slightly larger than our home planet, it sits on the outer edge of its star's habitable zone, making it significantly colder, potentially even colder than Mars. The discovery was made through the transit method, where scientists observe the slight dimming of a star as a planet passes in front of it. In this case, the planet's shadow moved across the star's face over a 10-hour period. Despite the frigid temperatures, researchers haven't ruled out the possibility of life or liquid water. Atmospheric modeling suggests that if the planet possesses an atmosphere rich in carbon dioxide, significantly thicker than Earth's, it could trap enough heat to maintain temperate conditions. Currently, the science team estimates a 40% chance that the planet falls within the conservative habitable zone, and a 51% chance it falls within the optimistic zone. This discovery provides a new target for the James Webb Space Telescope, JWST, to conduct follow-up atmospheric characterization, which could reveal whether this distant world is a frozen wasteland or a hidden oasis. Communities across India, Nepal, and several international locations marked a significant spiritual milestone this week. From January 27th to January 29th, the 58th Kabir Nirvan Diwas, Emancipation Day, was observed under the guidance of spiritual leader Sant Rampal Ji Maharaj. The event commemorates the historical departure of the poet Saint Kabir Sahib from Maghar, an event traditionally celebrated by followers as a demonstration of spiritual liberation. The central hubs for these observances were the 13 Satlak ashrams, including prominent locations in Mundka, Delhi, Dhanana Dham, Haryana, and Sojat, Rajasthan. Reports from these sites describe a large-scale mobilization of volunteers and devotees. The 3-day program featured a continuous Akhand Path, uninterrupted recitation of the Amar Granth, the sacred scripture of Sant Garib Das Ji Maharaj, which followers believe preserves the authentic teachings of Kabir. Beyond the religious recitations, the event was characterized by extensive social welfare activities. A massive Vishal Bandara was organized, providing free meals to hundreds of thousands of attendees regardless of their background. In line with the mission's focus on social reform, the gathering also facilitated several Ramani ceremonies, dowry-free marriages completed in approximately 17 minutes through the chanting of specific hymns. Additionally, blood donation camps were set up at various ashram premises to support local medical needs.
And that wraps up this week's bulletin. Thank you for joining SA News, and we'll see you next week. Truth that you want to know.